So here we are today doing some spray patching, and there was a request on one of my winter videos to do one explaining how the spreader controls work. So this seems like a good opportunity as ever. The truck we're using to pull the spray patcher is a sander. Obviously we're not spreading with it right now, we're just using it as a dump truck to carry the stone, and then it feeds it into the Durapatcher unit, and away we go from there. So there's different types of spreader controls, but all of our trucks here at the City of Barrie have Rexroth units in them. So they all consist of a computer and that works with sensors on the truck to match the spread rate to your speed, so you don't have to worry about compensating for that as you're driving. Your three main controls here are these knobs at the bottom. So if you can see on the screen, hang on, that's my signal to pull ahead. Anyway, so I'll get back to the knobs in a second. Up here, by pushing this button, you can get out onto this screen, which allows you to select your material type. So you can go into the pre-wet menu and you can choose, we use either salt brine or a product called GeoMelt, which works at colder temperatures, but it's expensive, so we typically use brine, but you can switch that back and forth there. And then under solid, you choose whether you're using sand, salt, or a mix. We very rarely use the mix, typically just salt and sand. So you select salt and escape back out of this, and now you see at the top of the screen there it says salt. So using your center knob here labeled conveyor, that's the one that sets your rate. By adjusting how fast the conveyor in the bottom of the box runs, that's what controls how much material comes out, or what we call your spread rate. So your instructions of the morning are, say, salt run 130. So you adjust the knob, you can see it's going up from a low of 50, and there's 130. You can adjust that up to 300 is the max on most trucks. You wouldn't run run a route at 300. That's a lot of salt. Like, that's, as you can see, they're 300 kilograms per lean kilometer, which is a lot of salt. We only use that for bad hills and emergencies. So, like I said, you can adjust that however you want. The first knob is your spinners, which will control your spread width. How fast the spinners are turning obviously will influence how fast how far the salt or sand will get flung out on the road. So by adjusting that, you see right at the bottom there, it says 10%, 20%, 30%. That's supposed to roughly replicate 20% or 30% of the road. Typically with salt, we use them around 2 or 3. Pull ahead again. Anyway, so like I said, that's your spread width. You'd be adjusting that usually, well, not too often while you're going, but sometimes the salt gets clumpy, or you got different road conditions. If you're doing a run on like basically a bare road where there's like frost or black ice or something, you would either have it right at 0 or just at 1, and that will spread the salt nicely, because the spinners are barely turning, so as it falls off slowly, it'll hit the road and it'll bounce a long ways. It'll cast it quite nicely and evenly. If you're doing a salt run in a snowstorm or on a snow-packed road or something like that, where there's material accumulated on the road, you have to put it up higher. We'd probably run that at about 3 or 4. because the salt won't bounce as far when it hits that snow or whatever. We need to spread it a bit. We don't go much more than that though, because we like to spread the salt in a bead, sort of along the center, starting at the center of the road and then working out on a multi-lane road. You'd make a couple passes, and then that way, as it starts to melt and forms brine, it'll start running across the road. If you scatter it too much, it won't work. Each crystal will melt a small area, and then it'll be exhausted. And then the last knob is liquid, so that controls our pre-wet, and you can see the second number there where it says liter per ton. It's set for geo right now, so that's first notch is 20, 40. I think that's it. Yeah, that's all you got. You got those two choices. Typically with geo, we always run 20 because you only need a very small amount to make it work. And then, like I said, you can switch that in that menu back to brine, and there's slightly more choices for brine. And then, like I said, for actually spreading when you're driving, the truck does it itself by matching the speed. And if you come to a stop, it'll stop spreading automatically, like you stop at a light or stop at a stop sign or whatever. But if you want to shut it off, you can use this, you click the spinner knob, and see, pull ahead again. See how it says pausing now? So if I was driving the truck out doing a slow run right now, nothing would be spreading. So you'd use this like when you're driving out to your route or a spot where you don't want to spread, where you've already covered or whatever. And then to make them spin again, you just click that and resume spreading. There's another mode at the end of the. I'm not going to do it now because like I said, we got stone in the box and I'll cause a lot of damage. But at the end of the day, or the end of your run, when you're going to clean out, you dump your load off and then put the box down, and if you zero all the knobs and push these two simultaneously, it'll go into what we call a stationary unload mode, and it'll run the conveyors and the spinners at high speed to clean out whatever's caught up in the channels in there. That's going to be handy sometimes also if you're stuck on a hill somewhere. You need to get a lot of material down under your wheels right away, because obviously, like I said, if you're not rolling, it won't spread anything. And then going back to what I said earlier, we also have sand settings. Sometimes it doesn't change right away. That's warning me there that the gate on the front of the truck is in improper position because it's fully closed right now, because we don't want anything to leak out. But that doesn't match the calibrated setting for the gate. The newer trucks the gate automatically adjusts itself. You don't have to get out and crank it. So there we go. Like I said, we have our sand settings now. We never pre-wet sand. We just layer down, and then the settings are much less. 500 is our basic setting, and we can go up to, we can do 650, and I don't think this one. Oh, 750 and 0. Some of the old trucks actually have a 1000 setting, which, like I said, you would never run a route like that because you'd be empty in a couple blocks. But that's good for bad hills or if you're stuck or anything. So. That's basically it. Relatively straightforward to run once you get at it. Like I said, actually spreading, it'll do itself. The truck's automatic, so I mean you don't have to worry about grinding gears or anything. A couple of levers here. This is for the dump box up and down. That's we have underbody scrapers on them as well. It's obviously been taken off for the summer, so we don't damage it, but we throw those on in the winter and use them for slushing off and so forth. But yeah, that's basically the computer system. So I hope that helped.